All right, today is Friday, March 16, 2017. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes CSI implementation group. I just copied over the agenda from last time, and we can review some of the PRs that were still pending last time and remove them if they don't apply. Excuse me. So fixing host path CSI sanity failure, looks like that's already been merged. Any updates on this, Luis or Sergey?
Yeah, so the PR, which was originally Liveness Probe PR, with this change, I had to split it. So Liveness went into the different repo, and this one was just addressing some sanity failure we saw. That's pretty much it.
Got it. So we introduced a new Liveness Probe repository where the Liveness Probe lives. How did you end up splitting it? Or is it going to be still a separate binary that you have to import?
Well, basically, I went with the separate container, like a sidecar container.
Okay.
Well, the documentation on the Kubernetes side talks about restarting a container, but when I checked, let's say, the DNS port that comes with the Kubernetes cluster, it seems that there is a liveness check, and it runs as a separate container. So I guess there is a miscommunication somewhere. And that's why I decided to go ahead and go with the separate container for now, at least, and see how it goes.
Cool. So this is still a work in progress, I imagine?
There are a couple of PRs which needs to be merged, and then it's actually usable now. Okay. It's just addressing the README and the example.
Okay. And have you tried this new approach of having the sidecar container in a real end-to-end test? Does it work?
Yeah, it does. I mean, okay, so the positive test works. So when the driver plugin is working, Liveness perfectly happy. What I haven't tried yet is to kind of build a code that would stop driver to work in some time and then see if Liveness will detect it and restart the whole pod.
Got
so
it.
It's, yeah, something like that.
Cool, this is great. This is going to make it a lot easier for folks to consume. Cool, thank you. Next up is updating the 1.0 docs. Felipe, any updates here? Looks like Felipe might not be on the call today, in which case we'll skip that and talk to him when he is around. Next up is attacher should use volume attributes field instead of annotation. This was a to-do for me to do, which I didn't get to, so that is going to remain outstanding, waiting on me. Any other PRs that are outstanding or need attention? Okay. Sorry, what was that?
It was me. I have a couple of PRs in the bug section.
Okay. Cool. We can move those up if we need to. So there's the CSI volume plugin provisioner attacher. I still have not reviewed the Kubernetes component of this. Let's see, did the other two get merged yet, or are they outstanding? Okay, I'll take a look at these as well. This one's already green, so we can go ahead and remove that. Provisioner attacher. Any updates here?
I didn't have time for that yet. Sorry.
No problem. We'll go ahead and remove this, and then the issue that Patrick raised last time about host path driver returns empty capabilities. Sergey, I think you were looking at this last time, right?
Right, yeah, and we fixed it. So what happened is when we introduced a capability check in external provisioner and attacher, basically host pass started failing because by default it was returning capability unknown, since it was using the default identity server. So we decided to switch it to the controller service for default identity server, since it's going to be probably majority of the driver will use that in kind of a controlless mode. So, but it's fixed.
Cool, thank you for that. We'll go ahead and mark that bug green and stop tracking it. Are there any other bugs folks have discovered in the meantime? Okay, so that's all for the bugs today. Any miscellaneous updates? So Luis, I know you were tracking, actually, is Luis on the call today? He is not. Luis was tracking issues with the Travis build being red. It looks like it's since been fixed. So we're gonna go ahead and mark that green for now. Actually, I'm not sure whether this got set. Does anybody know? Okay, we'll keep it orange until we get an update from Luis. And all canaries were old. Does anybody know if Luis got a chance to update the canaries on Quay? To stop marking them as 0.2?
Yeah, Saad, I'm back. Actually, I will also try to follow up and work with Luis.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Chakri.
Yeah. And I verified, like, I think Shilpa verified flex volume. It seems to be working with the CSI 0.2.0 spec, except that you need to modify the examples to have attributes. So that I will fix it.
Cool. Were there any changes that were needed for 0.2 here? Or it just...
I think the default one, I think Sergey or somebody fixed it, right? That actually completely fixed it in the flex volume side too.
Nice. Cool.
Thanks. Most of the common code, which kind of handles most of the stuff. So
that is great to hear. All right. And for NFS.
Yeah, so that should be green now.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Does it use the new plugin capability?
Yeah, so change that so that it's not going to push a controller. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Any updates? Is Felipe, or Felipe wasn't on this call today? Okay, we'll ignore the mock driver for today then. And BFS driver was already completed. So the drivers are starting to look good. Permanent home for unowned important drivers. Any update on either the NFS or the Cinder one?
So I do have an update on Cinder. Okay. So SIG OpenStack, actually, they had a vote on the location. Okay. So I was the only one who voted for a repo under OpenStack. Everybody else wanted to put it under Kubernetes. Okay. So that's the decision. Right now, there's actually a PR. I can give you the link. This under community, there's a PR. There are actually there are some steps there.
Did the SIG understand that this driver would be potentially used for more than just Kubernetes?
Yeah, I think they know that, I think, yeah.
Okay. And then what was the primary driver for keeping it out of?
I think they think this way it's easier to attract other contributors to maintain it, I think.
Okay.
And this is also the repo they're proposing is also not just for OpenStack. Actually, it's a cloud provider. It's going to be like a cloud provider, OpenStack, and then they're actually going to propose that for other cloud provider as well. So that PR actually has some details saying, okay, right now, since decision is made, you can actually move your drivers under this location, and then I think they want to get it done in 1.11. So okay. It looks like it's they. So I think also there is a cloud provider working group that's also related. I think the decision seems to be related to that as well.
So I got similar feedback from the steering committee regarding where we place, how we break up external storage and where we place some of the gray area things like CSI drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't definitive about it, but kind of the flavor that I got was that if we're, shipping storage plugins in tree and then we cut them out of tree, that we're still going to want to package and ship CSI drivers as part of the Kubernetes core package. They should probably go under the Kubernetes repo. In Red Hat, we have kind of an upstream downstream concept.
Yeah.
And to me, for example, the Gluster driver, the Gluster CSI driver, the upstream for that to me would be gluster.org.
Yep.
They would own it, and that would be the downstream, and we would clone from their upstream into the downstream Kubernetes one, but it would always just be a clone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of feel like we're teetering on the same thing here with Cinder. Ideally the upstream for it would be OpenStack, right? And we clone it into a Kubernetes or CSI driver so we can ship it.
Yeah.
And also, when you clone it, you cherry pick stuff and only clone stable stuff.
What I don't want to do is get into the business of the Kubernetes maintainers managing these drivers permanently, independent of their original owners.
Right, exactly.
That's what we were doing with the in-tree volumes, and that's why we got into so much pain, and we were trying to get away from all of that with CSI. If we end up in the same place, we've kind of lost. So the more we can get the original owners to take ownership of these drivers, the better.
Right, because once they go in that Kubernetes org, we have to test them.
Exactly.
Right, like we have to end-to-end test them.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to continue the conversation with the steering committee, but I would say that this, I don't know that the SIG can answer this at the SIG level. Like, I think this is
bigger than SIG.
Yeah.
Okay. And Sheng, it sounds like on the Cinder side, the decision has been made. Is there any room for pushback at all at this point, or it's kind
they
of?
Have already already voted. It's not just Cinder. It's actually
all the cloud providers.
It's SIG. No, it's SIG OpenStack. There's a.
I see.
So basically, there are other people not working on Cinder.
Okay. My concern is that putting it in a Kubernetes repo means the Kubernetes maintainers have to be responsible for testing and maintaining it. But it sounds like this repo will be maintained by OpenStack folks.
Right. They are actually they are looking for like core reviewers who are interested in maintaining those code. Yeah.
That's the key, right? Is like they need ownership of it. We don't want our names on the owner file.
Yep. Okay, I guess that would work as long as we're not in the owner file. We're happy. Sounds good. Thanks for the updates there. After NFS and iSCSI and Cinder have been moved out, we'll break out the existing repos. That's a to-do for now. AWS EBS, Luis is going to reach out to some Amazon folks to try and find a permanent home AWS driver.
So I've actually started Hemant working on this.
Oh, okay.
On the back burner.
Okay.
I mean, he has a lot of experience with the attach-detach problems that we've faced in production. Figured that he would be a.
Do you guys have any contacts at Amazon to put this under a AWS repo somewhere?
Yeah, we talked to somebody. Someone showed up at the last KubeCon and like, yeah, we're from Amazon. We're going to take all this over, and then we've never heard from them again.
Well, I mean, so I told Luis there's a SIG AWS. One of the co-leads is the GM for EKS. Maybe just reach out to him and be like, hey, we have this thing. Where do you guys want to put it? Let him take ownership of it.
Yes, but I'll tell you, this is crucial to some of our production environments, so we want to maintain some involvement.
Yeah, absolutely. But like the main core driver itself should be, in Amazon repo somewhere.
Right, and owned by SIG Amazon, if that's a thing.
AWS, yep. Okay, cool. We'll keep tracking that. Cutting the 0.2 release, we'll do that closer to March 26th, probably either before that or immediately after that. Documentation, the Kubernetes docs have been updated. The external docs, Felipe is working on, and I believe Luis is helping him with that. Testing and continuous integration, the Kubernetes host path has been updated. And Luis was promising to enable it for CI. I'm not sure what the current status of that is. We'll check with Luis on Monday. The GCPD driver David has been working on. He's running into some issues with getting the proper credentials into the right place. I'm not sure if David's on the call today, but he is continuing to work on that. Mock driver, we decided it would be very difficult to do, so most likely we're not going to do it. We'll keep it on the task list and probably drop it as we approach closer to the release. For the external provisioner, we have unit tests, so I'm going to go ahead and mark that as green, and we have CI that's running the unit tests. We don't have any end-to-end tests. I'm not sure what that would look like at this point, because in order to end-to-end test it, we need to either have some sort of mock driver and mock client to be able to exercise it. That's going to be a bigger project. If anybody's interested in working on that, let me know. Otherwise, we'll leave it unassigned for now.
Saad, just a kind of quick comment. I mean, we have an end-to-end test running under the Kubernetes. So are you referring end-to-end running under Kubernetes or some other type of end-to-end?
I'm thinking about end-to-end testing this component alone.
Oh, but it doesn't make sense, I mean, to run it alone, because, I mean,
Yeah.
it won't be end-to-end.
Yeah, in that case, it's more of an integration test. That's a good point. It's not as critical, honestly, because we have the Kubernetes end-to-end test that's exercising this path. But in general, when we have a large system like this, which has multiple components that make it up, relying only on the end-to-end tests is generally a bad idea. When something breaks, it's very difficult to track down what happened. So unit tests for the individual components are absolutely critical, but having integration tests for those individual components is also nice. That way you have clear, distinct boundaries between your different components. And if one particular component has a regression, it's much easier to catch that in the integration test rather than in the big giant end-to-end test, where a certain path may or may not be tested. So I think there's still a need for an integration test which would have mocked out backend and a mock client, but it's not super critical, hence P2. We can think about this for next quarter, like I think it was Brad or Luis suggested. Okay, any updates on the CSI Test Repository with CSI Sanity? Sergey, were you able to talk to Luis and David about this?
Yeah, we had a chat, and basically after the discussion, we decided that we will not split it, because there was a minor misunderstanding of how the test was built. So David thought that there is a duplication, but in fact, I mean, after the discussion, we decided it makes perfect sense. So we'll keep it as is, just adding new tests into the Sanity and the.
Okay. That sounds good to me. And do we have any CI that is currently building CSI Sanity? I guess CSI Test is doing that. Okay, we'll need to double check that, but it looks like that might already be done too, so. Okay, So then the next step is basically picking up CSI Sanity and all the drivers that we have and making sure that there is CI in the driver repos that's actually exercising and running it. Sergey, do you think the CSI Sanity is ready to be consumed by all these different drivers now?
Theoretically, yes. But I mean, example, it's a bit hard for me to use it with the Ceph driver because that would require, let's say, a Ceph cluster to be able to run it, you know.
Mm.
And in CI, I don't know how to do it, so I will ask rootfs for some guidance in this area. And since the Ceph driver is hosted by Ceph repo, so I have no idea how the CI is done there.
Right, right.
You say you need a cluster to test it, Sergey?
Yeah, you have to have a Ceph cluster, basically, which would reply you with the yes, here's your volume, and do things like map and mount and all that stuff.
I guess I'm a little bit confused. I thought that's what the CSI Sanity was, kind of a way to mock all that stuff.
So I think CSI Sanity is actually the tests themselves. It doesn't do the mocking of the backends.
Okay. All right. Never mind.
Also, we have containerized some of this stuff, right, in Cube. We could probably
Yeah, yeah. We have, I'm not sure how portable they would be to run in Travis, but that can be looked at, and I think
it's like Ceph in a container.
Nice. rootfs knows about that, right?
Yep.
Okay, so next steps will be for Sergey and rootfs to catch up on this and see what we can do to mock out the backends for these drivers so that we can have integration tests. All right, I think we're looking pretty good. Thank you all for all your hard work here, and let's get this across the finish line. Oh, one more thing is a blog post for CSI going to beta. I will work on this, and I'll send out a draft to all of you for review. They're planning a same thing as last time, 5 days of blog posts after the Kubernetes release. And so we can talk about what's new for CSI going to beta, kind of raise the flag for folks who are interested in building drivers and tell them it's safe to do so now. Talk about what the current status is and what's next and what's still missing from the beta and what we're going to work on in the next quarter. So I will make that, I'll track that for next time. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
There was an issue, I don't know that this is the right place to discuss it, but there was an issue that came up with some Cinder folks that are trying to develop an advanced Cinder driver to connect to Cinder storage out of tree or off a cluster. It's like a standalone Cinder client, and they're wanting to write a CSI driver for it.
Okay.
They have bucket loads of metadata that they want passed around through every call.
Okay.
And, you know, basically they chopped out the metadata service for Cinder, and they're wanting to store it in the CO somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Jan went through the different calls, and we have a series of calls that, you know, you can, some of the calls you can pass in some of the metadata and it'll return in some of the other calls, but there's a few calls where we don't do those things.
Right now, volume attributes is the mechanism to do that, right? And they've
right. They don't come across with unmount or delete, right? How reliable are these things? I've kind of questioned this myself. Like, you delete a PV out of Kubernetes. How long does the Cube CSI bridge retry? Like, what's the failure guarantees?
So you wrote the provisioner,
right?
Do you remember what the retry logic on that was?
Well, I mean, No, I don't.
Yeah, because I'm having difficulty
Provision is
on mine
easy.
too.
The provision and retry is easy because you have an object to work off. It's the delete operation that's a little, that I'm not sure how.
Yeah, traditionally, Kubernetes was really bad at keeping metadata. For example, when kubelet dies and somebody deletes a pod, a new kubelet starts and pod's not there, PV is not there, and it has to clean things up. So we have just the volume ID at that point, and we unmount things just with volume ID, but without the metadata. But it got better recently. We have PV protection, we have PVC protection. So we have the PV around when detach happens and unmount happens, unless admin forces the deletion of the objects. In that case, we don't have anything again. So I was thinking if we could add to CSI the attributes to control unpublish, node unpublish, node unstage. If a node that CO does the best to if the attributes, but it may happen in very rare cases that the attributes are not there, and the driver either fulfills the request or then some sane error, you know that retry won't help and the volume is lost and we just lock an event or something.
So my gut tells me like there's some recovery stuff that might not be fully fleshed out, or that might come as a surprise. And there's also some issues with like when these properties are available, or when the volume attributes are available and not available, that might come as a surprise. I'm not saying that we need to jump and go fix all this stuff right now, but I don't fully understand it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did some basic testing like in the first release where you delete and restart provisioners and everything seems to be fine. But yeah, there is some more testing which still needs to be done. I agree.
I think some of the issues is like, what if the container's down and we call it the delete? Like, how is the recovery going to work for that?
So for that, the finalizer should hold the PV object, right? That's what Jan is telling. So finalizer will hold the PV object, and PV object won't be deleted, and admin has to come and force delete it if he really wants to delete it.
Yep.
So
okay, so that it hangs the state off of that, and that's good because prior to 110 we didn't have that.
Yeah. Okay, let's see where this goes. If storage protection is not sufficient, this is something we could raise in the CSI spec.
Okay.
All right, cool. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
No, great progress. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
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 Bye.